Hi everyone, it's Phil here from Ashland Leather, and a lot of people come to us looking for patina on their leather. So I decided to pick out all of the light color shell cordovan that I currently have available, including this raw natural shell cordovan, all the way through something a little bit darker. So it's sort of the light to dark range here. This is actually dip dyed Amaretto shell cordovan. And the reason that I'm doing this today is we actually have a really nice small batch private stock event that is launching right now. Special Amaretto shell cordovan options to show you, including this Fat Herbie here. There's actually 5 different styles available. Okay, let's go through the colors one by one here. Starting off with the raw natural shell cordovan. To me, this is about as light as it gets. And I find the raw natural shell cordovan to have the most potential to develop a dramatic patina. So you can see it starts off very light, more of like a matte finish here, but I also have the normal natural shell cordovan here on the left. So you can see the difference in luster sort of immediately. The natural shell cordovan is a lighter shade also. It's slightly a little bit darker than the raw natural, but there's also a directionality of color. So let me take this natural shell piece here. Very bright, shiny luster on all the cordovan leather, unlike that raw natural. And you see as I spin it, it's a little bit darker at some angles and a little bit lighter at others. I've also noticed the color range gets a little bit more yellow at certain angles in the lighter range, and then a slight bit more red and orange at the darker ranges. So this is the natural shell cordovan. This is our most popular shell cordovan color. And in addition to the raw natural and normal natural shell, this is a special finish called tumbled natural shell cordovan. So they take the natural shell and they steam tumble it in some wooden drums, and it gets this really interesting sort of pebbled up look, which is much more of a different pebbling than most leathers you see. I'm actually wearing a Fat Herbie, so you can get a really good chance here to see just how much that color changes. But I have to say the tumbled natural shells can start a little bit darker, or some of them are a little bit lighter also. And I think this natural that I have here, the tumbled natural, started off a little bit darker, but this does give you a good sense of the direction for how this leather patinas. There's also different variations on the shell cordovan. So this is something called a boxboard texture. Cordovan has several different textures that they're able to impress into the leather. So one of them here, this boxboard texture is a little bit more of a fine texture, but there are some that are more coarse, like the Western texture that I like very much, or even an alligator print. And getting slightly darker in the color range here, this is a fan favorite color, a little bit more of a rare shell cordovan color here. This is whiskey shell cordovan, and if I compare it to the natural shell cordovan on the left, you'll notice that the whiskey is a little bit darker, but it also is a little bit more golden and yellow in color. And as I spin this around, you'll notice that range of color. It's also pretty dramatic in this one. There's certainly a directionality in the shell cordovan. So some angles, those fibers are pointing one direction, and some angles they're pointing another. So you get these little bits of lights and darks. And moving on to the topic at hand here, this is a piece of Amaretto shell cordovan here. This happens to be my favorite shell cordovan color. And I find it has a really dynamic color range. So this piece here, we have not polished up or cut into a wallet, obviously, but you'll notice that once the wallet pattern pieces have been cut and sewn together, it almost transforms the look. Every wallet that we make in the shell cordovan leather does get a little bit of a treatment of the Saphir cordovan cream that also tends to darken and make the color a little bit more orangey red. So this is slightly different than you might see on the uncut pattern pieces of the shell here. But looking at the wallet, you can see that range of color, really, really beautiful, sort of orangey tan at certain angles, a little bit more yellow at the lighter end of the color spectrum here. And then some angles, it's a little bit more red, a little bit darker, which I very much like. This is my favorite shell cordovan color. And here's something a little bit different. We haven't done too much of this. This is Amaretto shell cordovan, but this is actually raw Amaretto. And you'll notice it is much, much, much lighter than the polished up normal piece of shell on the left. Once we put on some of that shoe polish, some of that Saphir cordovan cream, it tends to make the color go a little bit more orange, a little bit more red, and that's exactly why you're seeing the raw Amaretto be so different than the polished up Amaretto. Cordovan Leather Company polishes every piece of shell cordovan with the Venetian shoe cream, and once that's applied to this raw Amaretto here, it starts to look a little bit more like this once it's been glazed in with some glass rods. And the last piece of leather I wanted to show you is another variation on the Amaretto shell cordovan. This is a color we're calling blood orange, but the intention was originally to make a dip-dyed version of Amaretto shell Cordovan. So you'll notice on the backside of this leather, a little bit more of this bright, bold, orangey tan look. And on the shell side, it's a little bit more red than normal. You can see as I compare the two here, just how much more red and orange the dip-dyed is compared to the standard Amaretto here. All right, on the table here are the 5 private stock Amaretto shell Cordovan options that are available right now. And you can find all of these on the private stock page of our website, ashlandleather.com. All right, first up, Capone Money Clip. This is intended to be a front pocket wallet, although when I wore mine, I wore this in my back pocket. And again, in my favorite shell color here, let's spin this guy around just to see the range of color in this Amaretto shell. And this does develop to be a little bit darker as you wear it. Whether or not you wear it in your front pocket or back pocket, it tends to polish up just by wearing it, and it gets a little bit darker. Here's a look at the inside. So we have 2 card holders on the inside, 2 quick access card slots on the outside, and then the spring bar money clip in the center. This is designed to fit US dollars. All right, next up is another minimalist style. We envision this one to be more of a front pocket wallet. So this is our Frank the Enforcer. It has 2 card slots on the front, 1 card slot on the back with a thumb notch, and then the larger section in the center here, this will fit US dollars folded in half. Up next is another minimalist style, and this is one of our favorite wallets. It's about the size of a deck of cards. This is the Bugs Moran, also in that beautiful Amaretto shell Cordovan. I'll spin this guy around just so you can see all the range of color in this piece. And on the edges of all the wallets, including this Bugs Moran, we do a nice little bevel, and then we wax and burnish the edges so you get this nice polished up look on all the edges. And then we also are cutting the Horween shell Cordovan ink stamp into nice visible spots. And here's another wallet with a great Horween shell Cordovan ink stamp. This is our Tony the Ant. And the Tony the Ant is very similar to the Bugs Moran. You can see it's slightly longer than the Bugs Moran, and that's because we've put a bill slot on the back of it. So the bill slot here has a little thumb notch in the center, which is a little bit atypical for most wallets. Most wallets, you don't see a bill slot on the outside of a wallet. I find it just a little bit easier to get cash in and out of having the bill slot on the outside of the wallet. Here's a look at the inside. We have another Horween ink stamp in the center. Each piece of shell Cordovan from Horween gets stamped once at their measuring process right before they pack it and ship it. So we try to cut them into great spots, like right in the center on this guy. And last up is very similar to the Tony the Ant, although this is the big brother to the Tony the Ant. This is what we call Fat Herbie. Same aesthetic as the Tony the Ant that we just looked at, with the exterior bill slot and the thumb notch here. This will fit every paper currency in the world, as well as a passport in a pinch. You can put a passport in the back here. It does stick up right to the top, and if you're looking for a size reference on this wallet, it's roughly the same size as a passport. And on the inside, we've got 4 card slots. This is what I like most about the wallet here, because we're not stacking card holders on top of each other. We're spreading out all of your contents of the wallet over more surface area. So if you wear your wallet in a back pocket like I do, like many people do, this tends to lay flatter in your back pocket, even holding all that stuff. So wow, Amaretto shell Cordovan, my favorite shell Cordovan color on my favorite wallet style here. If you have any questions about those different light shades of shell Cordovan, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. And I think this is gonna be the last video for the year. So happy New Year, it was a good 2022. Appreciate you guys supporting us very much, and I hope you have a great 2023.